Well, welcome, Hunger Heroes. It's that time of year for us where we're out in our communities making a huge difference in the lives of young people. And what I'd like to do is just kind of share a little bit about what we're doing in Lansing here in Michigan to try to keep participation up throughout the summer. I'll start off by just giving you a little brief history of my time with the Y. I've worked for the Y for close to 30 years now. I'm the executive director of Mystic Lake YMCA camp, which is a resident camp located in central Michigan. And then I also work as a regional facilitator for YUSA for year-round food programs. And through that work I've been doing for about 3 years. And I oversee this year YMCAs in Pennsylvania, but I've worked with Ys in New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Michigan over the years. And what we do through that work is just try to help them either improve, expand, grow, start up year-round food programs. And so some of what we do definitely involves how do we keep participation up, or what we like to kind of refer to is how do we increase access and keep retention high. So just a brief history of the Lansing Y food program, kind of a mixed history of feeding programs in Lansing. At some of our branches, which we have 2 urban day camps which participate in the summer food service program, and then, like I mentioned, my rural resident camp, we also participate. At my camp, we've been doing this as long as I can remember, and I've been here 25 years. And at the urban day camps, we just started doing summer food service within the last 5 or 6 years. And then we have our Healthy Living Mobile Kitchen, which does year-round feeding, but is definitely most active during the summer months. And that's the program that I'm going to kind of highlight today. Within that program, we have 7 sites. We do 12 stops. So there's a couple of sites that we hit a couple of times a day because of the high need. And for us in our food program overall, partnerships have really been key. So this is just some pictures of our Healthy Living Mobile Kitchen. One of the things I noticed in the answers that folks were giving is that sometimes lack of awareness can be a problem that you may have with regards to getting kids to your program and keeping them coming throughout the summer. As you can see, if we move this bus around town, it's basically a moving billboard. And so it's very apparent that what's important to the Y in Lansing is feeding programs, being out in the community, and making it nutritious. So some of the strategies that we've employed for outreach and retention, a big one is the visibility in the community. Just talked about that. Now, some of you may, sitting on this call, may go, well, we don't have a bus, we don't have it wrapped like that, and so I like to just kind of say you can be big as a parade or you can be as small as flyers. Saw one organization that, to promote their feeding programs, were hanging door clings, going door to door and hanging door clings with a schedule of their sites and what times they were feeding throughout the summer. Spark curriculum. We do some physical education activities at all of our feeding sites during the summer months. We actually have an activity bus that arrives about 20 minutes before the meals do. So we do 20 minutes of activity with the kids first, and then we do a meal second. And one of the things that's nice about that is, sometimes there can be a stigma attached to participating in a food program. One thing that might decrease participation is folks just don't feel comfortable going because maybe they think they're being perceived a certain way. And the nice part about having activities that you do first, it's kind of like, hey, you're here, and since you're here, why don't you join us for a meal? And so it helps make people feel more comfortable, kids and adults, about getting that food. We also use a passport, and if anybody wanted a copy of that, I can send you a PDF. What this passport includes, it's a little booklet that the kids get, kind of fits in your pocket, and they write their name in there, their age, they can draw a photograph of themselves, and then every week of the summer has a day that they can get a stamp from our staff and volunteers that are running the mobile kitchen. And, if they get a certain amount of these stamps, and they get to pick something from the treasure chest. So that's just one way to keep kids coming back. There's spots in there for them to draw their favorite vegetable. They can draw their favorite fruit, because we also try to really push nutrition education with them as well. You got to keep it fun. Pizza parties, you can make a healthy pizza, and, occasionally we'll throw a pizza party in. The kids know it's coming, and that's one way that we get them to continue to participate in our programs is, I guess, who doesn't like pizza, right? Partnering with other organizations to help increase food access and nutrition academic education, that's big. We've used businesses, schools, churches, other nonprofits. One of the stories I like to share is we did a farmer's market at our mobile kitchen and gave the kids play money to use, and helped teach them financial literacy by actually charging with this fake money for fruits and vegetables for them to take home. And it was just a neat way for them to kind of appreciate the value of money, to learn about how to manage their money, but also helped them be exposed to different types of fruits and vegetables. And that program went over real well. Then we've also used volunteers to read. And so not only do we like to try to work with kids on financial literacy, but by reading to them, that can be the activity that takes place, even having books available for them. Not only is it something for them to do that's enriching, but it can help curb summer learning loss, which we know is very important, particularly in kids that live in rural and urban settings. And then just kind of coming up with strategies to remove barriers. One of the things that we do in Lansing is we have made the commitment that we will feed the whole family. So if adults accompany children to our food sites, we will give them a meal as well. Now, I understand that that's not reimbursable, and that could become a cost issue for some organizations, but we have just made a commitment to that's one barrier that we did not want to exist. We also wanted to encourage families to do things together. There is funding that you can find for that. We have found it very easy in our community to raise money around our anti-hunger programs, because hunger is something that typically touches everybody, regardless of where you're from. And people really do want to make a difference in their community in that way. You got to get to know and understand your community. So, first of all, you got to go to where the kids are. A lot of times, folks might set up a food program at a site because it works. The logistics are good. The site is good. There's good indoor space. There's a little kitchenette there, and it just works. But it may not be in a spot that's easy for kids to get to. It may not be in a spot where there's a lot of kids. And so that's where our mobile kitchen does provide us with somewhat of an advantage there, because we can get to where they are. But we've also chosen sites because we park the bus. We're not delivering meals house to house. We've chosen sites where families and kids can easily get to. And they weren't, they're parks, they're open spaces. Very few of our locations actually have buildings that we can utilize for our families and kids that show up at our feeding programs. Building relationships to earn trust. One of the things that we found, we serve a high population of refugees at a couple of our sites. And when we first started the food programs, we noticed that there was not a lot of people showing up. Well, after we kind of got to know some of the families, we were able to communicate with them and find out that the reason why it was hard to get refugee families to join us was because typically the countries that they fled from, when large groups of people get together, it's usually not something good that comes out of it. And so we had to educate ourselves about that and get to a spot where we understood that, and then we just continued to have meetings in these small pockets of communities, get to know some of the key players, and that enabled us to build some trust. You also refer back to removing barriers. We have one of our sites where there's over 20 languages that are spoken, and so we made a conscious effort this year to actually look to hire somebody that was fluent in a number of different languages, and we were able to hire a bus driver to drive our mobile kitchen that speaks 14 different languages. So not only does he speak 14 different languages, but because he's kind of a fixture in some of these communities. He knows the families, he knows the kids, and so he's been able to actually help us promote our programs within those different pockets throughout the Lansing area, which has really helped us grow our numbers as well. The next slide here is it's a flyer that we utilize. We hang these in different places in those communities where we're trying to run our food programs. The front side of this is what you're looking at. It's got a little bit of program information. It shows you the dates we're running our feeding sites. But then on the back of it is every one of our locations listed, which is this slide here. And then you can see the times that will be there, what meals we're serving, and then what time we're running the Spark programming or the fitness activities. So we kind of let them know that there's going to be all these different things happening. We've had great success utilizing this as well. So, you know, I think the big thing is to just make sure that there's a reason for them to be there. And obviously our reason for existence at these sites is to feed children so that we can curb anti-hunger, or that we can end hunger in our communities. But we also want to make sure that there's something else that's bringing them there, just regardless of the food, because that's what's going to be the reason that they show up. Many of them will show up because there's a meal, but the more variety that you can throw in there and the more different types of activities that you can offer, I certainly believe that you can not only increase access to more kids, but you're going to be able to retain a large number of them. We find that we feed a similar number of kids, and it's the same kids day in and day out throughout the summer, which leads us to believe that we know what we're doing is working. So, like I mentioned at the very beginning, it's not necessarily, do you have this bus, do you have this billboard that you can drive around town? Yeah, it's flashy. I've heard of folks that have taken food into communities that they're using minivans, they're using station wagons. But really, you got to make sure that, first and foremost, that you're going into the right spots where the kids are. And we have found that it's been very successful for us, the fact that we also feed adults. So want to thank USDA as well as FRAC for having me on the call today. I'm going to remain on for the remainder of it as well, so if there's any questions, I'll kind of keep an eye on the chat box. But here's my contact information, too, for anybody that might want to reach out and chat with me or get more information. So thank you.